Sentire Media.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of A New Life in Italy. I'm your host, Samantha Wilson, and today we're diving into some truly fascinating opportunities that Italy is offering to foreigners and locals alike. And I'm sure you've heard about some of them in the news lately. Now, these are opportunities that turn your Italian dream into an affordable reality. And whether it's through one-year homes, generous tax incentives, or schemes to rejuvenate small towns, Italy is flinging its doors wide open to those who wish to contribute to and cherish its heritage. Now, in this episode, we are going to explore various initiatives designed to attract new residents to Italy and to some lesser-known towns. We're going to help you understand the financial benefits and guide you through the practical steps of taking advantage of these offers. Now, from picturesque villages wanting to help pay for your property to attractive tax regimes for new residents, Italy might just have the perfect deal for you. But as always, the devil is in the details, and there is a lot of misinformation out there. So today I am going to set the record straight and help you decide if one of these special initiatives is right for you. Are you ready? Let's get started. I'm Samantha Wilson, Chief Dreammaker at smartmoveitaly.com, and this is A New Life in Italy, a show where each week I take you behind the scenes of what it's really like to move to Italy, introduce you to some fascinating people, answer your questions, and show you how starting a new life in Bel Paese is possible for you. Well, welcome back. You might be wondering what's the catch with all these new incentives that promise foreigners rebates and tax deductions and maybe even grants to buy property. And although each initiative has its pros and its cons, they are all trying to achieve the same thing. These initiatives are all about breathing new life into these communities and countering the marginalization that many of these areas have experienced. Now, Italy has been facing a depopulation issue for quite a long time now. And there was a study by Italy's Ministry of Environment, and it's not really all that recent. It's back in 2016. But back then it showed that there were almost 2,500 towns that were so depopulated that they may not survive another 25 years. And we're already quite a ways into that time frame, so it's a little bit scary. And just last year, there were reports that there were just about 6,000 or more abandoned villages across the country. So there are a lot of efforts that the government is putting together to save these dying towns, not just the new ones that you're hearing, but also grants from the European Union and other grassroots campaigns. Now, some of these I know you've heard about, like the 1 Euro house or the PIA or the mini PIA, which is a new grant down in Salento, and of course, a new one in Tuscany. So I want to start with the most recent addition to that special initiative, and that is all over the news lately. I see it literally everywhere, and it's one that's coming from the beautiful region of Tuscany. Now, Tuscany is one of the most loved regions in Italy, and it's easy to see why. It has these rolling hills, this incredible wine, a super sunny coastline, and some of the most iconic cities in the country, well, if not the world. But Tuscany isn't all just Florence and Siena and Lucca. There's a large part of Tuscany that's really kind of wild and a lot less populated. In fact, there's just over 70 towns that are having a lot of problems with dwindling population, and the region wants to do something about it. Well, actually, they kind of need your help. So Tuscany is rolling out the red carpet with their latest program. It's called Residency in Montagna 2024. That means Residency in the Mountains 2024. Now, what they're saying is they are offering some financial incentives, actually pretty irresistible financial incentives, to encourage people to move to one of these charming, less populated towns. And we're talking grants ranging from about 10,000 to 30,000 euros. And, you know, in equivalence, that's about $10,700 to $32,000 just to help cover the costs of purchasing a property and then renovating it. Now, some of these towns are pretty small and remote, but others are actually pretty good and straight out of a fairy tale. Now, imagine living in Castelnuovo di Val di Cecina. This is a small medieval village that's built on a big, like a steep rock in the foothills of the Maremma. Now, the Maremma is an area in Tuscany that is home for the famous buttero. These are the Italian cowboys. Or maybe you prefer therapeutic thermal baths. There's this really nice little town called San Casciano dei Bagni, and this is known for their thermal therapeutic baths, which is perfect for a life of relaxation and wellness. But maybe you're an art lover, and Caprese Michelangelo might catch your eye. Yeah, this is the birthplace of the great Michelangelo himself. So there are some towns in this incentive, in this initiative, that are really quite interesting. So how can you get your hands on some of this grant money that I'm talking about, and what conditions need to be met? Well, there is a total fund of just under 3 million euros that is to be divided between towns and applicants. But of course, there are parameters. So listen up, because I have a feeling that for some of you, these parameters will be a deal breaker for you. The grants are designed to cover up to 50% of the costs associated with both purchasing and renovating the home. So the designation is really quite good. Now, these areas, these towns, have to have less than 5,000 residents, so they're super tiny. And this means not only buying a property, but also transforming it into a permanent residence. So this isn't for anyone who wants to buy something and then turn it into a vacation home. This has to be your primary home. So who can apply? Well, you need to be either an Italian citizen, an EU citizen, or a non-EU citizen that holds a long-term residency permit in Italy. And you have to commit to registering as a resident in one of these Italian towns, and you cannot have already been living in a mountain community before in Tuscany. So this is really important for you to understand the designation of what holding a long-term residence permit means. The process to have this residence permit is a little bit long. You need to first obtain a visa if you're a non-EU citizen, move to Italy, live here for 5 years, be a tax-paying resident for 5 years, at which time you can then apply for an EU long-term permit. And this long-term residency permit is good for 10 years. And it is this permit that you need to have in order to qualify for one of these incentives for one of these mountain towns. So if you are somebody who is just hoping to move to Italy and take advantage of this, I am sorry, my friends, this one is not going to work for you. You will have already needed to be living here for some time and qualifying and receiving that 10-year EU long-term permit first. Now, if you are here and your ears are still perked up because it sounds like something you'd love to do, here's something you have to really keep in mind. The application window is tight, so it is closing at 1 p.m. local Tuscan time on July 27th, 2024. So if you're listening to this later on, I'm sorry, you might have missed the deadline, but if you're getting it this week, it's July the 27th at 1 p.m. You have to have your application in. To apply, you just head over to the Tuscany region's official website and complete the necessary forms online. And now I've put the links in the show notes to make it easy for you. Now, if you are not a long-term resident already, there are some other initiatives that you may feel are better for you and help you get here. Let's start with the most famous one, the €1 home. Now, there are many towns all over Italy that have, at one time or another, put out the call for buyers to snap up properties for just €1. But I can tell you that this is really only a token, and you need to be prepared to pay closer to 5 or sometimes even 10,000 euros just to close on the property, fix the documentation, and get that key in your hand. So it's really not €1. It's actually going to be about 5 to 10,000 just to get started. And then there are renovations, because these properties are not going to be habitable. They're not going to be furnished, as we have had phone calls from some people. They're going to be something. They're going to be projects. These are properties that will be in pretty dire strait, pretty bad condition, and you are going to need to put some money into them, usually about $100,000 or more into these €1 homes. So the €1 home initiative isn't for people with low budgets, although it kind of feels that way, but it really isn't, because in fact, it's an initiative that is designed to bring attention to the towns and then bring buyers that actually have some money to invest in a renovation, hire local people, and eventually revitalize the towns that are in need of some TLC and some attention. We get a lot of inquiries about the €1 properties, and we always tell people that this is an opportunity to invest in a small, very beautiful town in Italy. It is not a way to scoop up a property for nothing, because they are not nothing. It's an insignificant amount of money at the beginning, but it will cost you a lot of money to make it livable. Really, the intention of this €1 initiative is to benefit the town, not your pocketbook. So remember that when you are thinking of chasing one of these €1 homes, you are going to need to have some money in the bank to make it work. Which leads me to the next one. And this is fairly new, but it's quite interesting actually. And if you are looking to start a tourist business in the South, this might be the one for you. Please remember that just starting a business or opening a business in Italy will not get you a visa. You will need to have another visa in order to stay longer than 90 days, but a foreigner is quite open to and able to invest in businesses in Italy. But if you're looking to open, let's say, a B&B, or even buy and renovate an existing small tourist structure, and the property is in the Salento region, this is the southern part of Puglia, then you may want to check out the PIA, or the mini PIA. Now, this is a new grant that can cover up to 90% of the renovations or improvements, as long as it is for a tourist accommodation. If your property is bigger, then it's called a PIA. If it's smaller, then it's a mini PIA. And these grants are non-repayable, and they can range anywhere from 1 to 40 million euros. So the grant is really quite big and can be a big help to revitalize a lot of these tourist structures in the southern part of Puglia, which tend to be a little bit more remote and maybe not as popular as further up the boot. Of course, there are requirements and a lot of bureaucracy to follow, so you will definitely need a local assistance to help you. But if a new revamped tourist accommodation in a beautiful Salento region is your dream, you should really check it out. I put some links again for the PIA and the mini PIA in the show notes. So those are some of the more popular grants for small towns or underpopulated areas that are attached to property. But initiatives to bring more people just to live in depopulated areas extend further and into special tax incentives if you move there. The one I'm talking about is the 7% flat tax for retirees. Now, this is a special flat tax for people who move to Italy, are receiving a foreign pension, and who establish their residency in a qualifying town. Now, these towns must be in the southern part of Italy, so regions like Abruzzo, Molise, Basilicata, Puglia, Calabria, Campania, Sicily, and of course the beautiful Sardinia. And inside those regions, the actual town that you're living in must be under 20,000 people. So these are still small towns in southern regions of Italy, and the goal is to repopulate them. Now, there are a lot of towns in these regions, so to have a list of all of the population under 20,000 is pretty difficult to do. In order to find out which towns qualify, you can simply Google. Just Google Comune di whatever town it is you're looking for, population 2024, and it will show you the results. We actually have many clients who have arrived in Italy on an elective residency visa and who are, of course, receiving a foreign pension, and they've chosen to take residency in the South to take advantage of this flat tax initiative because it's really quite good. And some of those towns are really starting to see the benefits. In fact, some populations have risen so much that they no longer qualify. So it's definitely working for them, and it's working for the people who are moving there. By the way, if you're thinking of moving to a 7% town in the South and don't feel like Googling for hours and hours, we have put together little free booklets of our top picks for the best 7% towns in all of these regions. And I've put the link to this little ebook in our show notes. One of the most common questions we get, and you will probably agree if you are in any of the social media channels, and the question is, where should I live in Italy? And it's a hard decision because there are so many beautiful places. But perhaps now, knowing that there are some special incentives that you may be able to take advantage of, you can look beyond the hotspots and find your little slice of heaven in one of these Tuscan mountain towns, or maybe a Sicilian €1 town, or even a 7% flat tax village where you can hang your hat and call home. This really could be your chance. One of these initiatives could make the difference for you. And even if you don't make the deadline this time for the Tuscany one, let this be an inspiration that you need to start planning, because there are sure to be more offers like this around the corner. It's time for listener questions. Just like the old radio call-in shows, my team has picked 3 listener questions, all left on our voicemail. I have no idea what these questions are, but I haven't been stumped yet. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Hi, Samantha. I'll be retiring in the next few years, and the ERV caught my attention. The thing is, I'm not sure if I'll want to live in Italy the rest of my life. Would it be okay to move there on the ERV for just a few years if I change my mind, or would that complicate my pension too much? Thank you.
Well, great question. And who knows what you're going to do, what I'm going to even do in the next few years from now. You know, the elective residency visa is a visa that's designed, it's not made for retired people, but the reason we say it's a retirement visa is because you need a pension. So most of the time, people who take this visa are here to retire. And the visa's intention is not for just to extend 90 days. It is intended for people to move to Italy and live in Italy full time. In fact, in the name, elective residency visa, so you're electing to move your residency to Italy and live here. Now, there's nothing on the visa that says you can never leave again, and if you must stay for a certain amount of time. When you arrive in your visa, you get your permesso di soggiorno, and this is your permit to stay, and it's valid for 12 months, and then you renew for another year and keep renewing until eventually, if you want, you can get the long-term permit after 5 years. But if you decide that you no longer want to live in Italy, you just can deregister your residency, make sure you do that, and then just don't renew your permesso di soggiorno and head on back to your old home or wherever it is you decide to live at that time. No penalties, no problems, nothing to worry about at all. It's completely up to you.
Hi, Samantha. This is Chris, and I am an EU citizen, and my wife and I just moved to Italy. My wife is a non-EU citizen, and so she's going to be going through the permesso process here shortly. But I know the time frame for getting a permesso can range from 8 to 12 months, depending on the comune that you are dealing with. And I was curious if there are other visas that might be more applicable to her, that might be a little bit quicker in nature. You know, maybe the ERV or one of the other visas that might be available. I know a lot of it depends on our specific situation, but just curious if you have any insight onto the time frame that it takes to apply for these different visas and the time in which they are recognized. Thanks.
Hi, Chris. Good question. So let me unpack it a little bit for you. A visa, which you are talking about, is the key to unlock the door to Italy. Your wife doesn't need one because she is married to an EU citizen, you. So when you arrive in Italy, she has, once you establish residency, which you must do fairly quickly because she only has 90 days to establish or apply for her permesso di soggiorno in order to stay longer than 90 days. So you, the EU citizen, must first have residency, And then she will apply because she is married to a European citizen living in Italy. And she only has 90 days to do that. Now, the permesso di soggiorno is the permit to stay. This is what allows her to stay, not the visa, but the permesso di soggiorno. And when she applies for the permesso di soggiorno, and she'll apply for that at the post office, she will get an appointment to attend the questura, the immigration office, the main police immigration office, in order to have her fingerprints and photographs taken and complete the process of the permesso. It's this wait time that is taking so long for people. It's anywhere from 12 months or even less. Maybe it's 6 months, 12 months, 18 months sometimes into the future before you can get this appointment at the questura. And the reason this is a problem is because you or she cannot travel outside of Italy to other Schengen countries until she gets this permesso di soggiorno, which could be well into a year into the future. So it's a bit of a pain, actually, the wait. She can certainly travel outside of Italy, but has to go out of Italy, out of Schengen, and directly back into Italy. Otherwise, she would be an overstay in the other Schengen countries. Now, waiting 12 months or 18 months is a long time because you are restricted, but every other visa has exactly the same wait time because the process is the same. Apply for the permesso di soggiorno, wait for the questura appointment, and it's that wait that's the problem. So if she applied for a visa, for example, to arrive here, which is a whole lot of work and money for nothing because she doesn't need it, she's still going to wait for that permesso di soggiorno. The only permesso di soggiorno that is fast-tracked, that goes very quickly, is the investor visa permesso di soggiorno. But if you are already here and you're a European citizen, you really don't need to go that way. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things you're just going to have to wait for.
Hello, Samantha. My name is Giorgio. I live in Florida in the United States. My question is it a good idea to have an attorney represent you in getting the proper documentation to move to Italy, basically on a part-time basis, for instance, 6 months a year? My wife and I were married in Rome, so we've been through that process before. And as I am getting up in age, I'm 76 and single, living alone, I'd like to know if it would be a good idea to have an attorney represent me. I live in the city of the Villages, Florida, and hope to hear from you.
Hello, Giorgio. Thank you for the message and the kind words. I'm glad we're able to help. Well, I can tell you that there really isn't a visa just to extend your 90-day stay. So when you're saying you're wondering if you need a lawyer to help you with the paperwork, just to come here and stay for 6 months instead of the regular 90 days, there really isn't any visa other than perhaps the elective residency visa, which is a visa that is designed for you to move and live in Italy full time. So there isn't a magic visa that can help you do that. Now, if you are an Italian citizen, if you're referring to the fact that do you need a lawyer to help you get your Italian citizenship so that you can come here and stay an extended period of time, yes, you don't need necessarily a lawyer. You can have a service provider or an expert or even yourself. You can do the application if you feel comfortable doing that, if you are actually indeed trying to get your Italian citizenship. This is a way that you can obviously come here and stay as long as you want without a visa. But otherwise, if you are looking to get a visa, and you need some help, you probably could do with some help, at least some guidance in part of the process, depending on what visa it is you're seeking, then it is a good idea. We find that some people are really good at doing that, and they're happy and look forward to digging through all of the documentation and the paperwork. And some people just prefer to have it done, for them and the right way the first time. So either way, you can choose to do it yourself or get help, whichever way you decide to come over here. Hope that helps. Well, that's all for this week's episode. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about visas, citizenship, property, and well, really anything about moving to Italy that you would like me to answer in an upcoming episode, please feel free to send us a voicemail at our website at smartmoveitaly.com/podcast, or just click on the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and remember, you can find all of the resources and the links to the people and the places that I mentioned in this episode inside the show notes. Ciao for now. A New Life in Italy podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created and hosted by me, Samantha Wilson. Production by London Nero, and with special thanks to Ali Frothingham, Sofia Pisana, and the entire team at Sentire. Follow A New Life in Italy wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you're thinking of moving to Italy, whether full-time, part-time, or for a lifetime, come and see me over at smartmoveitaly.com and we'll help you get here and start living your best life. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate and leave a review. It's much appreciated. I can't wait to meet up with you again next week, same time, same place. Ciao for now.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.